The Champions League returns to Celtic Park tonight, albeit through a qualifying game, but our campaign starts now. And to be there, we have to beat Kairat Almaty. That game is tonight, leg 1 at Celtic Park, and a lot has been made amongst the Celtic supporters as to whether or not we are ready for this game. But we go in heavy favourites, and I fully expect to see us win the tie. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about some transfer-related stories as well. Will Celtic use this as the catalyst to improve the squad for the 25-26 campaign? Let's not get our hopes up, but maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please make sure to go hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. We're back for another year of the Champions League. Well, very hopefully, if we can get past Kairat Almaty over the next couple of weeks. The home leg is tonight, and we're going to preview that. But beforehand, we have some transfer-related stuff to go over, and I want to get that out of the way very, very quickly. So yesterday we covered Calvin Stengs in depth and the situation that is unfurled with him being linked with the club. Of course, on Sunday night and Monday afternoon, Celtic here exclusively broke the story that Celtic are looking at the possibility of signing Calvin Stengs, and although there has been no official communication between Celtic and Feyenoord, there has been contact with the players' representatives. Yesterday, or last night I should say specifically, the door has opened even further for a possibility of a Calvin Stengs move, and it does raise the question as to whether or not it will happen. Because Dutch publication Voetbal Zone reported this yesterday, that Feyenoord are willing to separate from Calvin Stengs. They are apparently open to selling the player, and Robin van Persie is considering moving him out the door. That seems to be the latest update with Calvin Stengs, following on from the interest at Celtic, which was touched on in the article, and Feyenoord are willing to move the player on, which could only be good news for Celtic if they are genuinely interested. The publication reiterates the point that Celtic have apparently contacted Calvin Stengs' management and says that his contract is due to run up in mid-2027, making his departure not unthinkable. Transfermarkt values the player at around €7 million. However, it remains to be seen whether or not Feyenoord will actually receive that amount for him. That's because they signed him for €6 million in 2023, and of course has struggled to get into the side over the past 12 months. Celtic's interest in Stengs is serious, although his injury history is raising doubts. So that seems to be the latest update from Holland, on top of the reports that we've heard from Scotland, from the likes of Celtic here and other media outlets. And it seems like this is something that could move forward over the next couple of weeks, dependent on Champions League qualification. So the big line in question is that Robin van Persie is willing to sanction the move of Calvin Stengs. And honestly, I would be absolutely delighted if Celtic move for the player and look to make him a target for the remainder of this window. At the right wing, we need depth, we need quality, and I think that Calvin Stengs is a quality player. And it's only natural to get concerned and to have some worries about the injury record of the past year. But outside of that, you know, he's been pretty solid, he's been pretty good. He was brilliant at AZ Alkmaar. He was brilliant on his first season with Feyenoord. I think he's got over 20 assists and about 10 goals for the side since signing in 2023. For a right winger, that's a pretty good return considering his injury. I think that's something. There's something there for Celtic to seriously look at, and a player to maybe rejuvenate and bring into this squad. I think he walks in to be Celtic's best right winger without a shadow of a doubt. This is somebody who a couple of years ago had a really big reputation as a rising star in Holland. And I think that there's still potential to be tapped into there, and Celtic could certainly look at that. The only thing I will say is, with the way this window has went, you know what's going to happen. They'll value him at €7 million. Celtic will bid 3. They'll say, no, we want 7. Celtic will bid 3.5. And I can see us doing this dance again if we aren't all in on Calvin Stengs. He hasn't emerged as a target to late on in the window, which tells me that the club probably aren't willing to pay over the odds for him. And it's up to you if you think that's a good idea or not from Celtic. But at this point, we need quality. Brendan Rodgers has reiterated the point, we need quality. You've even got the club captain coming out yesterday and saying Celtic can't stand still. That for me says it all. That for me is exactly the line that should get Celtic behind the scenes in the boardroom moving. If you've got your club captain basically begging for upgrades and an improvement in the squad, asking not to stand still. You should be listening. Nobody knows this team better than the players that are there, and especially one that's been there for the best part of the last 10, 15 years. This is a team that needs improvement. And Calvin Stengs would certainly bring improvement. Of course, we await to see if Celtic make any official communication with Feyenoord themselves, and until then, it is only rumours, so we'll wait and see what happens, but Calvin Stengs is certainly a name to watch. Now, we spoke about it last night on the live stream, but in case you weren't there to watch it, Brendan Rodgers has commented on Jamie Vardy firsthand. He was asked about him at yesterday's Champions League press conference and has kept himself quite quiet about it, which says to me maybe some form of communication has taken place. Now, Brendan Rodgers said this yesterday, that, listen, I would not speak about any individual player. Of course, I worked really well with Jamie. He was brilliant for me during my time at Leicester, but there's been so many names floated about, I wouldn't disclose either way. So Brendan Rodgers quite tight-lipped on the matter as things stand. I feel like these are usually the type of things that are said before you hear some breaking story that he's on his way to Glasgow for a medical, but that's just, I'm just saying that could be the case. I don't think there's anything in particular right now to indicate that Jamie Vardy is or won't be a Celtic player. There's other clubs interested. We're hearing West Ham, Brentford are looking at Jamie Vardy. I think another couple of English clubs, including Wrexham as well, have been floated in the past couple of days. His options are certainly open. We're of course living off that story right now that said that he has his heart set on a move to Celtic, and we know Brendan Rodgers needs a striker. So right now the manager keeping his cards close to his chest, but he's not ruled out the possibility of Jamie Vardy signing. Right, it's time to talk about tonight's game, get all my opinion out there for Celtic versus Kairat Almaty. It is leg one of our two-legged affair against the Kazakhstan champions. We need to be winning this, and tonight we need to be winning quite convincingly in my opinion. Look, I'll take any form of win. A win's a win at the end of the day, and going over to Kazakhstan with an advantage is great, but it needs to be 3, 4, 5 goals for me. And I know that might sound a bit kind of entitled and a little bit self-glorifying in Celtic's favour, but yeah, we need to be going to Kazakhstan with a comfortable lead, the way that we have in the past against Astana, to make sure that game next week is as easy as possible on Celtic, especially with a derby in the offing. And at the end of the day, Celtic are miles better than Kairat Almaty. So I've seen a lot of people get nervous about this tie, and it's understandable. The transfer window would do that to a man. I think that, seeing the uncertainty of how Celtic have handled things heading into Champions League qualifiers does rightfully make people a little bit nervous. But at the end of the day, this is a side who are still far stronger, far better, and far more equipped for this type of game. And I think they should be making short work of them in the first leg to get it over and done with. So, yeah, I might be coming into it with a little bit of overconfidence, and it might come back to bite me if we don't go and win convincingly tonight. But I think the fact of the matter is, if we don't, it would be quite embarrassing. This is a team that's ranked lower than the likes of Hearts on European club rankings. I think they're about 430th in Europe or something like that. And this is a Celtic team that last year finished in the top 24 of the Champions League phase. And I know we've lost players. I know we've lost Kyogo, Kun or whatnot. That's still a huge gap, and I'm pretty confident of our chances tonight, to be quite honest. On that note, it doesn't mean that you can overlook the opposition or you can't go in with a proper game plan. No, we need to be prepared. We need to look at every aspect of their game to make sure they don't score many goals or score any goals, and so that we can take advantage of their defence where there's places to take advantage of. And I think Brendan Rodgers will do exactly that. He had a good record in Champions League qualifiers in his first couple of years. Of course, he qualified for the competition back-to-back in 2016 and 2017. So he knows how to navigate these sorts of games. And I think he knows how to navigate a two-legged affair as well. So, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I think that we'll set up in a way that's very similar to how we'd set up on a domestic game on a week-to-week basis. And I think that Kairat will have to set up in a way that most teams that come to Celtic Park set up on a week-to-week basis. I think we will see a bit of low-block football. I think we'll see a team that's probably defending for their life. And, our biggest concern is just making sure we aren't wasteful. Against Aberdeen and against St Mirren in the first two league games, we were a little bit wasteful. But we scored 4 against Falkirk. I think that brought some faith and confidence back into the Celtic fans. Yeah, we just need to take our chances tonight and make sure that we bury every single one that comes to us. Kairat actually go into the game a little bit downtrodden from the weekend because they were 2-0 up in their last game and then went on to lose 3-2, which has taken them to second place in the Kazakhstan Premier League. They were top before the weekend, but Astana have leapfrogged them as things stand. So yeah, a little bit of a downer for Kairat coming into this game, which hopefully will work in our favour. But yeah, give them the respect of being the Kazakhstani champions. Give them the respect of having a team that have made it this far in the Champions League qualifiers, knocking out Slovan Bratislava. Yeah, they're obviously a team that can do damage if you allow them to. The name to look out for is Dastan Satpiev, who is a young 17-year-old striker with a big move to Chelsea on the cards. He will sign for Chelsea in August of next year because due to international FIFA laws, he's too young to sign right now. But he has signed for Chelsea. He's now entering his final stretch with Kairat Almaty. He is the wonder kid that everyone in Kazakhstan is talking about right now for the club. He's scored 12 goals in 30 and then assisted a further 8. So that's 20 goal contributions in 30 games. He is the man to look out for tonight that Cameron Carter-Vickers and whoever joins him at centre-half need to watch. But I think we should be okay. We've got the experience in our back line. We're looking at one of the best defensive setups Celtic have had. With Tierney returning to the team, I think we'll handle it quite fine. Here is my starting 11 prediction on screen. I think it's going to be the same side that started against Aberdeen, to be honest. I can't see Brendan Rodgers making any changes outside of that because, yeah, it went up to Pittodrie and it done the job. It looked pretty convincing. Defensively, it looked assured as well. I just think that right now, this is what Brendan Rodgers thinks is Celtic's best team. I know that we might disagree with some of those players that are in that best 11 per se, but I think this is what Rodgers would go with as his best 11, and I think that's what he'll play tonight. So I would love to see the likes of Trusty come in. I'd love to see the likes of Engels maybe come in after his performance against Falkirk, but I do think that this is the team. I think they will go with the trusted Vickers and Scales partnership. I think they will stick with Nygren and Hatate with McGregor in the middle, and I think he'll give Forrest the start as well just because of that experience and that quality that he offers. So yeah, this is the team for me tonight. What is there to be said that hasn't been said about certain players? I could bang on about how Adam Ida really needs to score tonight, but he does. And I'm fed up repeating myself. So this is a team that... And I'll look, listen, I don't care how overconfident I sound. This team should be putting a few past Kairat Almaty tonight. And if they don't, then, you know, let's take in some sharp intakes through the teeth because it's not good enough. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident. And that does it for today's video, and tonight we will have a match reaction as usual, so look out for that. It might be a wee bit later than normal, so bear with me if you're waiting for that this evening. Until then, please take care of yourself. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.